proud members of the Fan First Sports Network. Best?
I can't give him an F because of I do include like raw pregame speeches and halftime speeches, and he gets an A+ for those.
Yes,
every single clip of every single one we've ever seen. Definitely better than a guy like Kirby Smart who's just in there dropping the F-bomb every 5 seconds.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Maybe you're into that, but
telling players to drive really fast all the time.
Yeah,
talking to his doctor about how to prevent a heart attack every 10 minutes.
I will say that I don't think that he's very good at
45, 40, 35, 40, he's gonna go! It's time people feel it! Day by day, he gets better and better! If we die, we die!
Man, put a child in that, put him in the aisle!
Bring that trophy back to Lincoln!
Hey, it's a beer crack. And there's whiskey in my glass.
Hold on, I gotta get a shot out of
I
here.
was saying Jaeger in a bottle.
There is Jaeger in the bottle.
Guys, Happy New Year. It's a new year. It's almost like a new team. It's kind of weird.
Except that we're looking back now still.
Yeah, we're still looking back. We're looking up to this point today as we sit here on Wednesday, January 15th at 9 p.m. Before we get going on things, if you are a fan of what Matt Rhule has done in the first 2 years, shoot us a like. If you're not a fan, drop a comment. If you're afraid to comment, if you're a big old puss, shoot us an email. Let us know what you think about the first 2 years and especially this last year with all the change in college football and all of the hard decisions Matt Rhule has had to make. Drop us an email, bigredjunkies@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think about the show. We definitely appreciate you guys. If you haven't yet, subscribe and share the show.
And if you hate the show and still want to comment, you have two choices. One, fuck off and keep scrolling. Or two, feel free to make the comment because we don't give a shit.
Yeah. So, I think that was directed at Colorado fans. That are still
specifically Colorado fans. Maybe some Iowa
fucking
fans that are creeping around.
Lately, there's been some Hoosier fans
randomly. The Indiana fans have been super douchey. Super douchey.
You have one good year in your entire fucking existence, and you think you're king shit.
Come on, all 50 of their fans got to get some of this out.
They also apparently have decided that they're a football school now because they all exited in the first half of their basketball game where they're getting blown up by 25 points and said they're no longer a basketball school.
Oopsies.
Yeah. It's all very fun. But we're here to talk about Matt Rhule, kind of capping off reviewing this past year. It's been wild. It's been crazy. I want to know, like, what do you guys, like, how do you grade out Matt Rhule? Just start the show. How do you grade out Matt Rhule's 2024? All encompassing, just a grade.
I was just going to say, are you talking the season, the off season too? As far as the season, or okay, if you're adding an off season, are you going off season before the season started? Like, are you going basically the entire calendar year of 2024?
Yeah, so I'm talking. Well, let's go fall camp forward.
Guys are making it very difficult.
Let's go fall camp forward. But I'm talking about recruiter, coach, now CEO Matt Rhule.
We did the grades last two shows. I would put Matt Rhule himself from fall camp on forward. B+, A- maybe.
Yeah, if you'd have asked me this right as the season ended, I'd have probably said C+, B-. But he's made some damn good moves and some damn good hires since then, so I'd be in the same boat.
Especially since you said fall, and this would have been maybe a little bit before technically fall camp started.
Sure.
But the way he handled the Evan Cooper situation and literally like 2 days later had John Butler.
That's fair.
I wanted to add that in there. That's kind of, I upgrade him for that. The way he was able to handle that, because we've seen for a long time when a coach has to unceremoniously get fired, resigned, whatever the hell you want to call it.
Be gone.
It becomes a not political, but PR nightmare at the University of Nebraska for 1,000 different reasons with 1,000 different leadership people.
Splits the fan base too.
Yes.
There's the people that want to speculate that he was a bad guy and he did something, whatever, blah, blah, that we'll never, ever know about.
Nebraska fans speculating?
But then there's what? Well, that's not what our entire show's about, is it? But then there's the other side where it's like defend, yep. And that's a homegrown boy, and I love him so much. He's one of Matt Rhule's boys. There's no way he did anything wrong. Who knows? Who cares? No one. He's gone.
I don't care. Didn't care then either.
He's in the past. No, I think that's fair. I think my grade would be a solid B. Like that's kind of where I am at, is a solid B, because I think he had opportunities going back to last offseason, specifically looking at the Evan Cooper situation and hiring John Butler. More so, I guess, going back a little bit further than that, going after, like, the proof's in the pudding when you hear directly from the horse's mouth. Yeah, I tried to hire Dana Holgorsen as the offensive coordinator last offseason. It didn't work out. He wasn't ready yet, but then he was ready in week 9 and decided, okay, I'll come take the reins because it's so bad. I guess I can't.
Yeah, and having the balls to just do it too, like not waiting until the season was over and letting the situation get worse.
He'd be getting like a D grade from me if he didn't have the balls to do that when he did and make that type of a move. Because I was literally racking my brain earlier today thinking about this specific conversation and how I wanted to get into this, and I wanted to kind of start with the Dana Holgorsen side of things, just because of the fact that I can't think of, like, this is like unprecedented. I can't think of another major program. Sure, it might have happened at a small program that we don't hear anything about, that doesn't get any national attention. I can't think of this happening mid-season where you brought in, or maybe changed coordinators to somebody else on the staff. That happens all the time.
But not bringing somebody from the outside.
Not bringing in one of the top 5 or 6 offensive minds in the country, or 5 or 6 people that could be coaching.
I don't care who it was. Just the fact that you brought in somebody from the outside, it does not happen. I can't think of one. I'm obviously 100 years older than both of you guys together.
About 150, really.
But also, when that whole thing went down, I was listening to a handful of national podcasts, and they brought it up. And even those guys who are like actually follow this stuff for their job, they were like, I've never seen anything like this. So, I mean, that's kind of why when you asked about the grade, and I said, are you talking about the entire calendar year? Because even the whole bringing in Dana Holgorsen for a month or whatever it was to just kind of test the waters, and then it didn't work out, and then ultimately it did. I think even just bringing him in as another pair of eyes during the offseason was a big deal. And then what he did with, again, Evan Cooper, John Butler, and then making the change, having the balls to make the change towards the end of the season. That's why I put him more of at a B+ and A-, because those are very hard decisions to make. You know, Evan Cooper was one of his boys, and to be able to do that in 2 days, to be able to, again, have the balls to do what he did with another one of his boys with Satterfield and bring in a guy from the outside, which in a move that is unprecedented in college football, that is, and it worked, by the way. So, like,
yeah, I'm at a B for everything you just said, and then I shoot him up even further when I look at what he's done with the portal this year.
Yeah.
Which is completely against what we, I think, kind of expected from him last year. Like, he didn't seem like a portal guy last year, and this year he's like, we're going to go get everybody.
Well, and both him and Dan Holgorsen in the early signing day show alluded to that was going to be the case. Even Damon Holgorsen even made the comment, we're going to bring in 13, 14, 15 guys. Mm-hmm. And he said, we're going to have probably 30 plus visitors.
Yeah, it was. I was talking to my dad earlier today, and he made the comment. He goes, do you think Rhule is kind of maybe swallowing his pride and changing the way he wants to build a program by doing all this portal stuff? And I sort of disagreed with him just because he did the portal stuff last year. He signed 6 to 10 guys. I don't remember the exact number. I know, like, in February it was like 6, but he still brought in a couple other guys. Because Sear Wright came in late, things like that.
That was a very late edition. Yeah, that was midsummer.
But it was somewhere between 6 and 10. Right now, I think we're at 14 or something like that. And I know we're still looking at the New Mexico.
We're at 16.
Okay, we're still looking at the New Mexico kid.
Yeah, that Pete. There's from what it sounds like, there's maybe 2 more hanging out there because the Houston wide receiver just decided to last second flip to Texas A&M.
So, like, yeah, there is more this year than there was last year, but at the same time, he was coming into this year, basically his first time working the portal because he's just coming back to college, and he didn't fully know, and we also had a shit ton of players returning from last year, so there really wasn't I know that you kind of had an unlimited roster, but at the same time, if you're bringing in a portal guy, they're not going to be walk-ons. So you kind of had to massage that a little bit with the scholarship limits and everything else. You didn't really have the opportunities to bring in a whole bunch of scholarship guys. So this year it's different because you're kind of just almost starting new because you have to drop it down to 105. And there are more opportunities to bring in more players. You can kind of gauge your team a little bit better with all the experience that's leaving. You're going to bring in more portal guys. That's just how it goes.
What do you think, Matt?
I mean,
the question is it Matt Rhule swallowing his pride and completely changing direction, or what do you think about this situation?
I don't think it's necessarily what he would like to do from a fundamental coach that likes to build players.
He still said he wants to build the program through high school.
Players.
Yeah.
But that said, there's too many changes within college football right now to ignore, and I don't think he's the kind of guy who's going to be stuck in his ways to just try and push past that stuff.
That was another thing that I said to my dad was where I said, saying he swallowed his pride kind of sounds like a kind of aggressive. I said, it's more, he's just adaptable. He's adapting to what college football is.
You have to think about the fact that every team is going through this. There's a lot more talent out there to go get.
Yeah.
And I'd be really disappointed if we didn't go after some of these guys. And we're getting a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really just Rhule staying with the times, not necessarily him changing his philosophy on how to coach.
That's my thing. I think if you were to ask Matt Rhule, the person, not the coach, not anything else, the person, what was your favorite coaching job? Nebraska would probably be last on his list, maybe right above Carolina. But I think Matt Rhule at Temple was probably the way that he truly wants to run a program. It's all about development. It's all about finding the diamond in the rough because you can't, right now he's dealing with an unprecedented bag of riches that he's never had in his career. And so I think that he came in here trying to do, with the blueprint that worked for him at Temple and the blueprint that worked for him at Baylor. And only in the first year, essentially, of NIL / the portal being what they are now. And he is parlayed, I think, as much of that experience plus equally that from his experience at Carolina now and being able to turn and look at this, not so much of that, we had a show titled 2 seasons ago, Grandpa Rhule Gives a Bear Hug or something like that. That was the emotional family ties, hearty Matt Rhule. And right now we've seen, especially the back half of this season, this is business NFL style Matt Rhule.
Mm-hmm.
This is, hey, there's no room for emotions left anymore.
Well, that's what college football is going to.
Yes.
I mean, that's...
Yes and no, because then we also would still even recently talk about how he can get behind the podium and make you feel like he's your,
No.
The stepdad you never had. You know what I mean?
You're never going to take the emotion out of football. That's not what I mean. Like the hoorah, those moments. I'm not saying he's taking that out. I'm saying when it comes to the business side of things, the roster management side of things, especially the days of feelings and the days of, I reference it all the time. The boogeyman that's been around. Those guys just had to get gone. I think that's why you see a Fedoni go and take his talents elsewhere, whether it's the NFL or onto tattoo artistry or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I think that there was a turning of the page in the mind of Matt Rhule in about week 7 or 8 when he decided, hey, this offense isn't working anymore. What I'm doing to this point doesn't work anymore. I also think that's when you started to see some of the tensions flare between John Butler and Tony White. I think there's just there was a changing of the guard, not necessarily personnel wise, but in Matt Rhule's brain from bear hug Matt Rhule to NFL CEO Matt Rhule, where he realized I'm headed into year 3. It is shit or get off the pot time. And in this era of college football, and I'm saying this era moving 25 forward with roster limits combined with what's essentially sounding like it's going to be some sort of a salary cap. But the blue blood status, those programs that have borderline unlimited funds, it's time for us to take that step forward again because we now have the upper hand. You're hearing everybody in Alabama freaking out. The national media is starting to talk about it. Nick Saban has referenced it. Their NIL program is not where it needs to be.
And some of that's Nick Saban's fault.
Some of it's Nick Saban's fault.
And I don't mean that directly because, again, what I kept hearing was that the Alabama NIL program was not set up very well because most of the players that went to go play with Nick Saban took a discount just because they wanted to play for Nick Saban.
Well, and because nobody else outside the SEC was paying.
Sure. But it was just more of like, I already know I'm going to be in the NFL in 3 years, so I'll take a discount to go play with you to be able to take that next step. And so now that they don't have that guy that, favors the discount, they need to really step up their NIL game.
Yeah. And you're seeing it. You saw it. I think it's a combination of the NIL side of things and a place like Nebraska, a place like Notre Dame, a place like Ohio State, Michigan. Like there's such a large fan base that's not just based on competitive football in the SEC that just has been dormant for a long time. Not necessarily that Ohio State and Michigan have been dormant per se, but there's a reason they talk about Ohio State's roster this year being a $20 million plus roster.
Mm-hmm.
Like those, you're not hearing that about Georgia. You're not hearing that about Alabama. And look at the team itself in Alabama. The starting players that have left that team to go play elsewhere, including a starting right tackle, presumed starter for next season, right tackle headed to Nebraska.
Yeah.
Does he think his opportunity to win here is more? Probably not. He probably just got paid a way bigger bag.
Yeah.
But that's what we can do. And to all the people out there, I had this conversation with somebody not just this evening. Oh yeah, he was getting run out of Alabama. No way he was going to start next year. Oh yeah, is that why Alabama is filing tampering claims? Yeah. Come on.
And you brought that up before we started recording, and it's just like, who cares if he is getting run out? Okay, then that's a bonus for us.
I don't care. He's a 5-star athlete who's an absolute beast of a man who, didn't have great stats playing the SEC against some of the best competition out there.
A 5-star athlete left Georgia a couple of years ago and came up here, and we did an entire show on him being the dude. Does that mean he got ran out of Georgia? No, who cares?
And turned into the dude this year.
God.
MJ Sherman, in case you were wondering.
Yeah.
But back to it being more about Matt Rhule. That's kind of why I say it's also at a B for me. Yes, he's doing amazing things with the portal. Yes, he's done some awesome things with the coaching staff changes, and I like pretty much everything he's done. I don't see a clear vision of what he's trying to do with special teams, which is weird to me unless it's a coach that's still coaching, which would be a playoff NFL coach or somebody at Ohio State or Notre Dame.
I mean, yeah, but
it's a decent possibility. It might also just be that he had other priorities to take care of first, like
they also
16 transfers in.
They also just had the coaching convention in Charlotte this past week. So, he was probably down there talking to a handful of people.
Probably.
So, I mean,
Special teams is important. It's not the number one thing I'm looking for.
That's kind of what I was getting at. I wanted to try to phrase it in that way where it's like, I don't want to minimize the importance of special teams, but at the same time, I would, when we had two open coordinator positions with defense and special teams, I'd much rather fill the defensive coordinator position faster than special teams.
Obviously.
So it's like, you know what? They'll fill it when they fill it, and it's
also, I think you dropped his grade a lot if you're just giving him shit for special teams right now.
No. It's not just about special teams. It's about everything combined for me. And I also have to ding him a little bit on the fact that we came into the season with an offensive coordinator that he was trying to replace in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
That's a decision that you actively made, and you wasted essentially 3/4 of Dylan Raiola's freshman season. And how much damage did you do to his development? I don't know.
Only time will tell.
Only time will tell there. And I'm definitely not trying to be doom or gloom about it, but that's a big decision to me that I had to ding him for.
Yeah, it makes sense. My grade is probably high, but I by no means would I put him at a B+ or A- for his tenure here so far. I'm strictly just talking about what I feel like he did for the 2024 season.
Yeah, my grade's perfect. I know what you're talking about.
If I was going to talk about how I think he's handled and navigated the changes that were necessary for the way college football is going to be moving forward after this year, especially with the roster cut down, obviously we're not there yet.
Yeah.
The roster still has to be cut down by close to, I think it's like 20
to 30.
20 to 20. It was like 22 or 23, I think was the last number I saw today.
Yeah.
And that's if they don't bring any other transfers in.
That's kind of why I said 20 to 30, to give a little bit of a little wiggle room for more transfers. Because not just more transfers in the next couple of weeks, but after the spring season, they're probably going to bring in a couple more too. So,
well, we're going to lose guys too.
Absolutely. I'm just talking about guys also coming in. So
I do think it's really interesting to see the type of portal additions that we made. I think you have to look at it and understand he's giving as much autonomy to the defensive side of the ball as he is to the offensive side of the ball. The fact that we brought in so many of these back-end DB type guys, and they're all pretty different body types than what we have in the room already, which is a very, very young room. We talked about that a lot this last season. I think that tells me John Butler's not happy with what's there. Kind of like the exact same thing that Dana Holgorsen did with the wide receivers room. It's, hey, you're not going to carry on a 105-man roster. You're not going to carry 32 DBs into the season.
Yeah.
You're going to go through spring with these dudes, and there might even be transfers that are here that just transferred in that aren't going to be here after spring ball. But it's going to be a fight and claw and scratch for a spot type of a spring training.
I don't entirely look at it as that he didn't necessarily like the DB room that he had coming in. I think it was more of like you said, there's 25-ish guys that we came into the season with in that defensive back room. There's going to be guys that have to leave because of the 105. But we also talked about how youth was a big factor in that defensive back room.
Yep.
We still need experience back there. And because a lot of those guys did not get in this year, at least on a consistent basis. So that's
partly due to the fact that he came in so late.
The talent might still be there, but we don't have the experience.
The interesting thing that I heard, and I'm going to say the interesting thing because he always likes to say how interesting things are, is Sipple brought this up, how Evan Cooper had a very distinct style about the way he liked to recruit. He loved to go find those super athletic dudes that were raw.
Yep.
That is the exact opposite of what a 10-year NFL veteran position coach is going to be looking for. You're looking for guys that are already polished up. I don't have to teach you the fundamentals. You should know all of these things, and I can talk to you about football on a super high level.
Yep.
That's what John Butler is. That's what a lot of those guys talked about. Rhule said, they came to me, they said these different things, and then you listen to Marquise Buford talk about how, John Butler just talks to us like we've never been talked to before about football, and it kind of makes your head spin. But once you get the way he's talking to you, then all of a sudden things start to click and get slower.
Yep.
And if he's doing that sort of a thing for these guys, it's no wonder that he's going out and bringing in third, fourth year guys that have played in high level defensive schemes. The kid we brought in, that Dason McCullough from Oklahoma.
Yep.
Like Brett Venables is a top tier. Like if you were going to say Dana Holgorsen is one of the best offensive coordinators that you could possibly go get right now, Brett Venables would be one of the best defensive coordinators that you could possibly go get right now. It'd be a similar level thing. And he's coming from Oklahoma where Brett Venables, he's been the head coach, but he was also calling the defense.
Yeah.
So he's a very well experienced guy who's been in a smart system. Who to me that speaks, and we have no idea where he's going to play. He's listed at safety, but he's 6'5", 230, 235. He can play anywhere.
I have to imagine he's going to probably fill that Isaac Gifford role.
Yeah.
Just kind of going all over the field
Talk about taking Isaac Gifford, supersizing him.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, like
5 inches taller and an extra 15
But to
pounds.
me, with him being listed as a safety, that's what that tells me, is that he's going to be kind of that in between the box and the secondary Isaac Gifford type guy.
Sure. But as that relates to Matt Rhule, I just think I'm super impressed with the fact that he's been able to take his hands off. Whereas with Evan Cooper, with Tony White, even with obviously with Satterfield, it always just felt like he had that kid gloves type mentality on him. Just his fingers were in everything. Now this is CEO Matt Rhule. I'm almost more like an NFL GM instead of a head coach.
And it's funny, we've talked about it on this show and many other times where the changes in college football now to, back in the day and all that stuff. I remember, as we're watching the 97 Nebraska-Missouri game, this is the good old days.
For those of you who like to comment because you can see the reflection in the glass.
Or on the helmet. Some people think
97 Nebraska-Missouri on YouTube. You can check out the full game.
They're about to go up 14-7.
You can barely read the score because it's so blurry.
But anyway, back in this day, Bobby Bowden, head coach for Florida State, he was on top of the world around this time. Obviously, with this game 97, we were on the top of the world. But anyway, I remember criticizing Bobby Bowden all the time because I'm like, he doesn't do anything. He's just a CEO out there. He doesn't coach. He barely wears a headset, all that stuff. Nowadays, that's exactly what you want as a head coach.
Exactly what you want.
So it's how things have changed. It's crazy.
I was thinking about that and like, how does Matt Rhule go talk to Tom Osborne about today's football?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, obviously, and he's gotten away from talking to Tom so much. The first year, it was like every chance he got, he was bringing up, I called Tom this week.
Yeah.
Well, part of that was just him ingratiating himself with the fan base.
And I totally get that.
You do that.
Yep.
At the same time, I think he took some of the practice stuff. He's talked about the practice system and the way that everybody gets to practice all hours and those things. Like, some of that I think is big. But how does a guy who is managing and running basically a full-blown NFL operation now go talk to a guy who was basically just an offensive coordinator that also had the head coaching title back then?
Yeah.
It's a way different thing. And like, I don't remember when the roster limits got put into place, but they,
the scholarship limits,
the roster limit in general that were, at least where it kind of came down from being like, Sipple and Sean Callahan the other day were talking about they remember rosters that were in the 200s.
Yeah.
Like that's fucking insane.
But again, they could unlimited scholarships. That's what it was. And then they shrunk the scholarship limits. They never really shrunk the roster limits itself.
It's just hard to find that many kids that'll play.
So that was just when Tyler
scholarship.
Ryan came out?
Yeah. So yeah, they when they dropped the it was I want to say we talked about the 105.
72. They talked about it like they remembered it happening. Neither one of them that old.
Well, Sipple is.
The old fuck.
Like 55.
That's
okay, so he was 4. I remember when I was 3 years old, my dad telling me about Nebraska had 400 guys on the sideline.
Sipple acts like he's 105, so what? Who cares? But yeah, then they changed the scholarship limits down to 85. I want to say it was like in the early 90s or maybe late 80s.
I assume that was when Title IX came out.
And that changed it. Shit. Well, no, because it was like 100 or 105, the scholarship limits then were that, and then they lowered it again. And that changed a lot of stuff. But it's, it's what you have to adapt to, and I think Rhule is doing that very well.
I do think he's been pretty nimble getting through all that stuff. I'm also impressed, like, every time, it's funny, Matt was talking about fan base speculating and overreacting to things. It's funny because
we don't ever do that.
You watch on Husker Twitter, and it's just like, every day, I can't believe we didn't get that left tackle, or I can't believe what, it's like, but then another guy's name comes out, and he's even better than the guy that went through. It's like,
or if we don't sign this guy, everybody needs to be fired. It's like, Jesus Christ,
come on, guys. First of all, they could bring in the highest rated athlete that's out there that's available and think he's a total dickhead, and they're not going to bring him in the locker room.
Yeah,
like you don't
want to bring an Aaron Rodgers into your program.
Well, but you've also spent the last 2 seasons battling a locker room head case issue. We just got rid of the majority of that. We don't need to go back into another one of them and then have people start fighting and things like that.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit like this kid from New Mexico, where it sounds like it's down to Nebraska or Michigan.
Yeah.
And if you look at it as far as NIL, I'm not worried about that at all with Michigan, because Michigan's NIL isn't that great either. But we have
but if they bring Dave Portnoy in on it, we're fucked.
We still have the money that Michigan has. Either way, we do.
I just mean as far as like what they did with that quarterback.
I know. Oof. But we still got the money to compete with Michigan. But the other factor is, sorry to say this about Nebraska, but Michigan's been a better program than us lately.
Absolutely.
They put more offensive linemen specifically.
They won a natty a year ago. What the fuck do you mean they've been a better program than us recently?
But also they put a lot of offensive linemen in the NFL, and that's what so it's like.
And that offensive coordinator is their head coach now.
Yeah.
So it's not like that's gone from their program.
Yeah. No. So it's kind of like, I mean, I think that we can get him specifically with NIL. It's whether or not all of the other stuff is a factor.
Sure.
Who knows? We'll see.
Well, and who knows if he wants to be here.
At the end of the day, he's gonna go with the best fit for him.
Yeah.
Because the money is going to be there either way.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like we were talking about how people were like, if we don't get him, then everything is fucked and we're terrible and nobody pays any money and all that stuff. It's like, you got to remember, it's kind of like in a football game when your team doesn't score. Well, the other team's on scholarship too and trying to stop you.
Yeah.
It's not like, the old adage of, when the offense draws their plays up on the chalkboard, all those arrows go to the end zone.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't mean
Every single one of
them. None of them just go 6 yards and then get tackled.
Yeah.
Like, they all go to the end
You're
zone.
going to get tackled.
Go 6 yards and take a knee, because that's what this play does.
Yeah. So
No. You're running past 3 yards. Fuck you.
all these other teams are trying too. It's not just because you didn't get him doesn't mean everything's terrible.
But all the other fan bases don't care as much as we do,
Of course, yeah, sure.
Come on.
I mean, I 100% agree with everything you're saying. The other thing that I'm also going to say about this situation is sometimes we don't need him as bad as another team does. Michigan's lost 3 offensive linemen last year.
Fuck Michigan. I don't care what they do.
No, listen, they're losing. They're going to probably lose another 3 or 4 to the draft this year.
Good.
Their offensive line that won them in a natty, and you can really say, I mean, especially in that Alabama game, the offensive line won them that game as much as anything else.
Oh gosh, yes.
That and the defensive line.
Well,
Their fatties won them that natty. There's a fatty natty.
And their Jesus Christ. and their trenches on both sides are going to be completely depleted after this year, and they're going to lose their D coordinator. So you're looking at Michigan. It's like maybe that's not as attractive as Nebraska this year, because Nebraska had some holes to fill. Nebraska has, Michigan.
But they also have a 5-star quarterback.
Michigan's going to have a 5-star top level quarterback, just like Dylan Raiola. But guess what? He's not in his second year. He's going into his first. You have no idea what's going to happen. So it's all a guessing game with these guys. They're all going to get promised the sun, moon, and stars. They got to decide for themselves where they want to be. You also have to remember that character and leadership is going to play a role in this. And if you look at what Nebraska has coming back next year, cool. If you're a person who's out on Teddy Prohaska and out on Turner Corcoran because their injury history and, well, Corcoran just doesn't play that well, blah, blah, blah. Corcoran's a very experienced offensive tackle who, yes, we've said several times should be playing at guard, but we also don't need him at guard. So if he needs to play tackle, if Prohaska comes back and somehow is actually healthy and puts together a full season, that's the guy everybody wanted to start last year anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then you throw on top of that, Gunnar Gatula got to play a lot of football this year that's meaningful, and he's going to have a whole nother offseason. And the best part about it was for the last couple of games last year, we didn't talk about him that much.
Yeah, he started to look better.
And I get it. A lot of I'm sure there's guys saying it right now. Well, Mazuka came in on all the important plays at left tackle in the last couple of games. He absolutely did. We're not saying that that's not the case. Gunnar Gatula wasn't ready to go. He's a redshirt freshman. There's a lot of guys in our offensive line room right now that might look completely different come August than they do right now. Just never know. And it might not be as dire for us to bring in Pete as it is for Michigan. So you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yep.
But I also think that's cool how Matt Rhule is navigating that.
I agree. I mean, like I said, I don't have any complaints with how he's adapted. Hell, that was one of the things that we talked about when he got hired, is that he's been out of the college game and he did not come in during the transfer of the transfer portal and the NIL factor. How will he be able to adapt to it? I think he's done a great job of adapting to it.
Yeah.
I mean, is he perfect at it? Of course not. But because everybody's still learning this. But I think he's doing very well.
Yeah, when we first talked about it, didn't we say, give me 5 years?
Yeah.
Give me 5 years of all this new shit before I have any real opinions on it. Including the 12-team playoff. Like,
I don't
calm down about that, too.
Even the NIL stuff is changing with the whole thing of the universities paying the players now.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's all still changing constantly.
Just wait until they get into contracts. Yeah. It's coming.
So we've done a lot of talking about Matt Rhule, the program manager to this point so far. The staff builder, the program manager. What do you guys think about Matt Rhule, the head coach, as in game management and clock management for this season?
C- at best. Yeah. Sorry,
but there were several times, especially if you bring up clock management, you're like, "Wait, call a timeout. There's 40 seconds. What are we doing here, bud?"
Yeah.
There were a lot of, especially if you look at something like the Illinois game, it's just like, what the fuck are we doing right now? That to me almost felt like it was relying too much on his coordinators when he should still be managing the game himself.
Yeah.
And I actually give him probably somewhat closer to a C- or a D on that, just simply because of the fact that
That's why I said C- at best.
I can't give him an F because of I do include like raw pregame speeches and halftime speeches, and he gets an A+ for those.
Yes,
every single clip of every single one we've ever seen. Definitely better than a guy like Kirby Smart who's just in there dropping the F-bomb every 5 seconds.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Maybe you're into that, but
telling players to drive really fast all the time.
yeah,
Talking to his doctor about how to prevent a heart attack every 10 minutes.
I will say that I don't think that he's very good at clock management.
No.
I don't think he's very good at it at all.
I think he gets lost in games in the same way that players do.
He gets so into what's happening on the field that I think he loses some of that. And that's actually what I hope. I know everybody thinks Phil Snow is just in here in a glorified title as a co-defensive coordinator. I hope that is actually something that he kind of is stepping in and helping with, or that there's someone that he's going to put in charge of helping with clock management, things like that, because Phil Snow has been a coach, not a head coach, but a coach, a high-end D coordinator in this league and in the NFL for a long, long time. He understands the game. Anybody can learn clock management. Go play fucking NCAA 25 for a couple days, and you've got clock management down like a science.
And also not handling the offense with kid gloves anymore. To be able to just give it all to Holgorsen and not kind of
that too.
I don't mean this necessarily in a negative way, but not micromanaging the Satterfield offense.
Well, he had to.
I know he had to. That's why I said not mean necessarily.
I think
I
he
didn't
was
mean that in
doing
a bad
some
way.
of that with the defense down the stretch too.
But if you're able to just let your mind be free because you trust this other guy that's doing it 100%, not 90% or whatever the number was with Satterfield, that will allow, hopefully, I guess I should say it that way, will allow him to be able to pay more attention and not get lost in the game, like you said, and stuff like that.
I have a much simpler solution. You know how a lot of coaches have that dude who's like holding them back from running on the field all the time? He doesn't need that. He's pretty calm and collected that way.
True.
He needs a dude who's like, you got 2 timeouts. You got 2 timeouts.
I want that to
Look
be
at how many
Phil
timeouts
Snow.
there are.
I want that to be Phil Snow.
Phil Snow's going to be up in the booth, though.
I don't even know if he'll actually be here for most of the time, but
yes,
I know he's on the staff.
You're not getting an associate head coach title and not
seriously,
being
just
somebody. He'll be in the booth.
Somebody who has the power to
in
walk
the
up
booth
to
is
him.
fine. It's still in the ear.
Somebody who has the power to walk up to him and pull his head off. It's like, hey, call timeouts with this, like just something that can remind him to manage the game a little better.
An old
so
guy like that's
invested in
gonna
it.
be like, get me the fuck out of the cold. Get me in that booth. Fuck you.
Fuck yeah.
Oh, there's no chance. He's going to be in the booth every single game.
But that's my biggest gripe, I think, with Rhule over the last year, aside from the handling of the Satterfield thing. It's just his time management's weird. It did seem like in the first 3 or 4 games that it was the middle 8 was being handled really, really well because Dylan Raiola drove us down and scored before halftime like the first 3 games straight.
Mm-hmm.
But then the competition got tough and it was like, this doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Doesn't look good.
Do you guys think that he either didn't have enough of a game plan or had too much of a game plan in some of the games this last year? Or it seemed like he was
about Satterfield? Or?
No, I'm talking about Rhule. It just seemed like he was thinking for too long sometimes.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. Because I also don't understand. I don't think that roles were defined as much as they are now.
That could be.
Now it's like Dana Holgorsen. If Rhule tries to step in and be like, "Hey, Dana, you need to do this" in the middle of a game, Dana's gonna go, "Cool, here's the fucking playbook," and walk off the field. Dana Holgorsen is not here for that. That's not even it. And so I think that roles are very, very clearly defined now. And he had to do the same thing with John Butler because there's no way that John Butler, as a guy who told the Bills to go fuck themselves for passing him over for D coordinator, said it was okay to bring in Phil Snow as his co-D coordinator and co-head coach
without this being his.
This being his.
Yeah.
He gets final say. This is the buck stops here. I'm doing what the fuck I'm doing over here. And if it doesn't work, that's on my head after the game.
Yep.
So maybe all this stuff is going to be fleshed out for 25.
Maybe Matt Rhule can just deal with the refs in time. And if that's the case, awesome. Don't even wear a headset, Rhule.
I think he did a great job dealing with the refs as is. So
there were some games that kind of felt almost Celtics 2 years ago, whining too much for every call.
Yeah, nobody knows what that means because nobody cares about the
Matt
NBA.
does.
Where's that weird button that we used to have?
Jesus.
You making obscure Boston references.
Or just NBA.
I have no idea.
Yeah, that
Good
right
enough.
there.
But Outside of that, I guess the only other portion of Matt Rhule is the recruiter. I think he's done a tremendous job from the recruiter standpoint.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes.
This year, and I'm not even just talking portal. I think the biggest thing that he did this year that was different than last year was he didn't play the class and then play the portal. I think he played the portal to fill in after the class. I think he played the class, but knew what he was doing in the portal at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that is just going to continue to get better, in my opinion, because of the fact that he's getting more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Well, and people have asked too. The question I guess is he embracing the prime style of roster churn?
Wait, again, you
No.
have to.
Not at that level.
Well, no, nobody.
These are the two answers.
No, but
These
nobody.
are your answers.
No, but I didn't mean
Absolutely
it. Like,
not at the
Make
prime
your
level.
case. Make your case,
No.
and Matt will counter.
Yeah, you
I
be
didn't-
careful here.
No,
This
the
is
way
gonna
that I
get-
said that, I know that's how it sounded, but that's not how I meant that. Because
Matt Rhule's a childish little bitch.
Yeah, no.
Jen said it first.
I did not
There's-
say that at all.
There's a soundbite that
No
we're
matter
getting
how
rid of.
you edit this, that will not come out of my mouth. So no,
Jen said it.
unless you AI this thing.
Yeah, we're
like-
doing that. It's gonna have that like duck lips moving on you. Matt Rhule is a
All right,
childish
Jen,
little bitch.
make your point so I can tell you you're wrong.
No, it was just more of he has to adapt to the changing of the roster through the transfer portal. Now, does that mean changing the entire roster? No, that doesn't. That's not how that has to mean. But because again, nobody does it like in the Dion way. So,
Because it worked so well for him.
but that's such an well. I mean, you can't say that it didn't because he finished tied for
If
first in
you
the conference.
if you
but-
remove two players, it didn't work for him at all.
it's fine, but he still
Worked
finished
well enough
tied
to
for.
get him the Cowboys head coaching job.
He ain't going there. But
I would love it if he did that.
oh god, I would too. Especially with my buddy Mike down in Florida, man. I would just every time I bring it up, he's like, "I fucking hate you."
So Matt, embracing the Dion way.
No. That
he,
again, that's
he
not
walked
what I
it
meant.
completely back.
Yeah.
He knew that he was wrong right after he
No.
said it. We don't have to talk about it. I agree with him now that Matt Rhule had to be more at least respectful of the portal and bring guys in because they're going to be there. You need to go out and get them.
Well, I don't think Matt Rhule was not respecting the portal. I don't think he was all the way to the Dabo Sweeney side of things, but he's also definitely not all the way to the Coach Prime
yeah.
side of things. He's not. I mean, in the first season, Coach Sanders brought in like 49 transfers or something like that. Second season was like 35
It was
or some
like
shit
80
like that.
new players.
Yeah,
like
it was,
his first year.
It was absolutely wild and crazy, and he refuses to go out and recruit high school kids.
Yeah.
If they don't want to come visit and be attached to a 5-star tag, he's not interested in talking to them. I don't see that at all from Matt Rhule in this year, but I do see a change in the way that he's gone about it to a little bit more of the side of I need to use the portal to fill the immediate leadership style frontline holes that I have, not just go use the portal for those that I don't think I can find on my roster and develop.
Well, I mean, I kind of brought this up earlier. He has said still multiple times he will build this program through high school and he will supplement the holes through the portal.
And I think that's how the transfer portal should be used.
I agree.
Overhauling your roster every year to try and make something work better is never going to be the way.
No.
At least on a consistent basis. Will it work once or twice, for a
You
a
might get
team or two?
lucky
Yeah.
once every 20 years.
On a consistent
Indiana
basis,
is
no.
not going to be a normal thing.
No.
Not at all.
No.
I think that he's
Indiana
also,
wasn't Indiana this year either.
What do you mean?
He came from, what was it, Bowling Green?
James Madison.
James Madison, same thing. He brought half the fucking team with him. That was James Madison in
Yeah.
Indiana uniforms.
Yeah.
But what he did was exactly what Rhule's doing this year. He identified
He's bringing
He
half of James
identified-
Madison into the team.
he identified spots on his roster that he had to have an upgrade, and he went out and got him in the portal with seasoned production level guys.
Not to talk too much about Indiana because then those Indiana buttholes will come in and be like, see, you talk about us.
They get really excited.
God. But realistically,
You know what they are?
pussies?
Childish little bitches.
Nah. I think we can come up with something better
Yeah,
for
they're
them.
at that level. I like
But,
the Indiana fans a lot better than I like the
I
Colorado
don't
fans.
think they're that important to be able to even really get a moniker because who cares? But one of the biggest reasons why it worked wasn't just because James Madison was successful, but he brought all the guys from James Madison that knew his culture.
Yeah.
That was able to Rhule made the joking comment that I wasn't able to bring players from my previous place because Christian McCaffrey wasn't coming with me. Stuff like that.
Well, that would have been fun, even though he had to trade him away.
Yeah. But still, it was just kind of like to be able to have guys that already know your culture to come into your program, that sort of stuff can work on a semi-consistent basis. But to be able to sustain it, to bring in that many transfer portal guys, granted, we don't know for sure if that's sustainable, but realistically, it doesn't seem like it's a sustainable situation to have.
No, but you also don't know how much of a culture he's established.
We'll find out.
So there's that. And that's exactly it. You might find out. It might turn out that he's an amazing coach, and they're going to be a staying power in the Big Ten for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be wildly shocked by that, but it's possible.
I don't think that they're going to be a staying power at the level of Penn State.
No.
Yeah, Northwestern could win the Natty next year. I think both are equally possible.
Yeah. Speaking of Penn State, I can't believe they lost their D coordinator Clemson like that.
Yeah, that was weird.
Every other year, James Franklin is changing out coordinators on both the offensive and
yet
defensive
he
side.
still keeps winning 10 or 11 games.
Yep.
More power to him. He earned a lot of respect from me the way that they played in the playoff this year.
Yeah,
especially against Notre Dame.
He's still James Franklin a couple of that last game, so
I don't think that was even on him, dude. That was his quarterback.
Nah.
That was one bad play by his quarterback. Either way, we're not here to talk about that. We're talking about Matt Rhule.
Yep.
And what I do know about Matt Rhule is he is a good game day coach minus the time.
I agree.
Yeah.
Moving forward, what do you guys expect to see from Matt Rhule this offseason?
I don't know how much different he's really going to be. I mean, yeah, he's adapting to what the rules are, but I don't see any situation where it's going to be drastically different than what we've already known of him from 2 years.
Something that we've not talked about much, I still expect to see him really developing these guys. I expect to see all of the young kids, including Riola, make big jumps from year to year.
That is an expectation that I have that I think is fair for us to place on him. But I think one of the biggest things
he puts that kind of emphasis on himself.
Yeah.
So obviously we as fans are going to do that too.
Absolutely. But I think one of the biggest things that's going to be a departure from the norm for him the last two off seasons is spring training being more like a training camp, summer training camp for NFL. I think it's going to be more of a tryout for those guys to be in there, a bloated roster that he knows he has to get down. And it's going to be harder work for those guys and less of this emotional bonding and team building. Well, I'm not saying that stuff's going to go bye-bye, but I think that this is going to be more about, guys, this is a business and you're here to get a spot because guess what? Your spot's not guaranteed.
I think
every year prior to this, sorry, I'll stop interrupting you, but every year prior to this, everybody that's on the team headed into spring ball is on the team. Yeah. Like they're not worried about getting cut. Right now, you're playing Madden and coming up to September, you got to get cut down to 53. You got to cut down to 105. And they're probably going to carry a bloated 15 to 30 guys on this roster that he's going to have to sit down and have hard conversations with at the end of spring. That's going to be completely different than what we're used to seeing in spring. And that's also going to get a massive reaction from the fan base because there's going to be guys that people are attached to, especially if they're local kids.
Yep.
That was actually what started the big conversation about Pritchett coming in here earlier with that guy that I was telling you about prior to this show. He was talking about that kid from Omaha here that announced today that he committed to Illinois, the interior offensive lineman. And I was like, yeah, cool. He's like, well, he had offers and invites from Iowa and Kansas State and Kansas and Illinois. It's like, yeah, cool. Those guys aren't on the level of Nebraska when it comes to NIL, portal, roster management, moving forward 25 on.
Well, we just don't have a spot for him.
That's my thing.
Cares?
That's my thing, though. It's like he's the 47th ranked interior offensive lineman in the class. Like, cool.
But it's
we don't need an interior offensive lineman in the class.
Before we sit here and talk about this kid, since this is Matt Rhule show,
talk about this kid, but
because it's fine. Point made.
Yeah,
there's not room for him. I don't necessarily think that's something that we shouldn't have already expected from Matt Rhule. The bring everybody together, let's team bond, let's fix this program. That's year one for Matt Rhule. Year 3 should look completely different if you expect the team to be completely different.
Yeah.
You talk about getting the boogeyman off of your back. Boogeyman should be gone now.
Yeah.
So you need to move forward instead of continuing to do the things that you did in year 1, unless you expect to be where you were in year 1.
Yeah.
So I'd fully expect more of a management style.
We don't say Foley anymore. Just kidding. Ed Foley.
Yeah, I knew what you were talking about. I just didn't.
Wow. I did not.
He's such a fucking dad, Jed.
Oh, come on.
I'm a dad too, and I had no idea what that was.
No, that was awful.
But
I lost my train of thought. You guys continue on.
you know, part of the whole year 3 and growth process, and also with what you said, as far as having tough decisions after spring ball and telling a lot of guys that he doesn't want to tell, sorry, we don't have a spot for you. And like you said, as far as, you know, a good chunk of those guys are going to be local kids that a lot of people are going to be pissed off that they don't have a spot. You know, it's kind of funny that the fans will react to those local kids that don't have a spot anymore, and they'll be all up in their feels because it's a local kid. You know, you get a guy like Jalen Lloyd who transfers out and he's going to Oklahoma State, and you hear that news and you hear so many people like, oh, it's just too bad it didn't work out, which you're right. It is too bad it didn't work out because I want everybody to work out when they come to Nebraska. But would you have said the same thing if he was from South Carolina and came here to Nebraska and he just didn't work out and he transferred to Oklahoma State? Like,
I think some of them
most of them are only saying that because he's a local kid.
Yeah.
They're
And,
also
like,
the
it's
same
just-
fans that are going to shit on him when he loses you games.
But ultimately, and again, this isn't me shitting on Jalen Lloyd because it was just the way the offense was and everything else, and he's still learning football because he hasn't played that much. Like, I know he had a couple of long touchdowns 2 seasons ago, but realistically, he had one game this year in his entire football career where he had more than one catch.
Yeah.
Again, this isn't me shitting on Jalen Lloyd, but what did he really do?
Well,
like, is it really something you have to go, oh my gosh, this is somebody that we really needed to keep? Like, again, I wanted to keep him, but at the same
a bunch of
time,
people say that we needed to keep him. I've mostly seen
It's been everywhere.
I've mostly seen it's too bad that it didn't work out.
100%.
It's too bad, in my opinion, that they ruined his fucking body.
I don't believe. I'm not in agreeing with you, especially after what Jalen Lloyd said in his little channel 10-11 interview that he did. That he talked about how he had an injury in the offseason that nobody ever knew about.
And an illness towards
and
the
then
end
an
of the season.
illness apparently towards the middle part of the season, and that had taken him so far out of what the coaches were wanting to do and what they had seen that when Holgerson came in, he didn't really get that opportunity.
Yeah.
He kind of laid off the fact that he'd had an unproductive year on those things, and maybe that's true. Maybe that's totally fair. At the same time, he recognized, and it was very clear that he was told, I'm not really sure that there's a spot for you here. You should go find somewhere else.
Yep.
Because guess what? I'm sorry to say it, guys, but he was not a polished wide receiver whatsoever. No. He was a track star who came in, who has ideas in his head that he's going to run for the Olympics for the U.S. That's super fucking cool. Oklahoma State has a great track program too, and they can use him down there. He wasn't going to get to continue doing those sorts of things because moving forward, Nebraska football is a business, and Nebraska football is poised to make big boy moves and play big boy football.
Like, look at the receivers that we had this year, the style of receivers, but look at the receivers that we're going to continue, we are bringing back for next season and that we have brought in. Where does Jalen Lloyd fit?
He doesn't.
I'm sorry,
on the sideline,
but he just doesn't.
There's a real.
And he's going to go to Oklahoma State, and I hope he gets on the field day one. I hope he balls out, and I hope all of his dreams come true.
Yeah,
he just doesn't fit here. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
like,
there's a decent chance he had a conversation where he wasn't a part of the 105.
There's a really realistic chance that Ja'Cory Barney is like the third or fourth option this next year. The guys that we're bringing in are higher skill level guys than either Nayo or Banks that we brought in last year. We brought in 3 of them. And the one guy that the second guy that's coming from Kentucky that was a true freshman last year that had reclassified, that spent the entire season at 17 years old playing college football.
Talk about Hardly Gilmore.
Yeah, he's a guy that they've talked about. Brian
barely Gilmore.
Just right there.
He's getting there.
Brian Christopherson was talking about him today as being a guy that is kind of flying under the radar. That Dakel Shorts has basically talked about as being like as having 1 gear. Mm-hmm. He's one of those. The way that he described it was like how you hear coaches talk about some of those great athletes. They have one gear. He doesn't know how to not be 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And with a guy with that kind of talent, he's got the same type of speed as Jalen Lloyd, except for he's a polished wide receiver.
Yeah.
And he had some 400 or 500 yards in an SEC team this year.
Yeah.
It had a bad SEC team this year. Oh, and his number one wide receiver that was ahead of him is here with him. So it's just, and his wide receivers coach. Like there wasn't going to be a spot for Jalen Lloyd. And so the thing that I respect most about Matt Rhule is he got out in front of it with him and said, hey, look, this is the early transfer portal. You're going to get an opportunity. I'll make all the calls for you. We'll put together tape for you. Whatever we can possibly do. Could have been that hard. He only had like 7 good catches in his entire career.
Yeah.
But the way that he said it in that little interview, I don't know if you saw it, was basically like, yeah, I pretty much got told I wasn't going to have a spot. I got to move on.
Yep. Yeah, he didn't throw anybody under the bus. By the way, Matt, you can't give him any more crap about the dad jokes when you just dropped that Hardly joke.
Come on.
I didn't say it wasn't good. I'm just saying, like, you kind of can't give him shit and then 5 minutes later drop that.
It was hardly a joke.
Yeah, it was hardly any better than anything I've said.
It was just better executed. We'll give it that.
Okay.
Correct. I'll give you that one.
Any other things you guys want to close the book on 2024 with Matt Rhule, with the team, anything like that?
Do you want me to fly through these season questions really quick and tell you how bad you lost on the season picks?
Yes, do it. Do it. I forgot you had these questions loaded up.
We need a total as well.
Yep, that's what I'm getting. Question number 1 was, which running back will have the most carries, Emmett Ramir or Gabe Ervin? Obviously, it was, or Dowdell also was on the list. Dowdell had the most carries, 143. Gabe only had 14. Nobody took Dowdell, so everybody lost that one. Nebraska scoring defensive ranking, 20.5. They ended up at 17th with 19.5 points per game. I was the only one dumb enough to say no. I did say I think it was going to be 20 to 25, so I thought it was going to be close.
Being wrong is being wrong. I mean, that's all I got to say about that one.
Is it even a full point in between those numbers? I didn't. Yeah, but it's
got to be close.
Yeah. Sacks by Nebraska's defense, 39.5. That was kind of one of those numbers where Rhule said he wanted to be at 40 and 20. Yeah. 39.5. We had 20 after 6 games, so we were well on our way.
Cruising.
And then we had 10 the rest of the way, so we had 30 sacks.
We missed it.
BJ,
got tough.
You were the only one to take the over, so that didn't work out for you. Shocker. Nebraska turnovers lost, 19.5. We had only lost 4 turnovers at the halfway point of the season through 6 games. Then we had 15 after that. I had the number at 19.5. They had 19. So
that's pretty good.
Under on that one. Everybody took the under on that one. We just barely got it, but we all got it. Field goals made of 40-plus yard. I had 6.5 made field goals of 40-plus yards. They only ended up with 3. I mean, I kind of thought that, like, once John Holt came in, especially in that Ohio State game, where he made, like, 2 of them over 40 yards, I was like, okay, we have 4 or 5 more games.
We're going.
Who knows? And then, no. I was the only one dumb enough to take the over on that one. Kick returns for a touchdown at 0.5. We had 0. Our longest punt return was 13 yards, so we didn't come close to that one.
Did anybody take that?
Matt, Elijah, and the fans took the over.
Oh,
so
wow.
BJ and myself got that one with the under.
So we got our point back. We're all even right now on the season guesses.
How many players will be over 500 receiving yards? I had the number at 2.5. Jamal Banks had 587. Nayor and Barney had 455 and 447. So they were really close. Maybe if Nayor would have played, he could have gotten over 500, but, he would have dropped 7 passes, so he wouldn't have gotten over 500 anyway.
If he would have just caught like 2 of them, he would have gotten over.
I know.
Fuck, if he would have caught that one in the Iowa game, we would have won the game and he'd have been over.
Yeah. Speaking of catching up on points, I was the only one to take the under on that one, so I got a point on that one. How many guys will have double-digit tackles for loss? 1.5. Thankfully for the bowl game, we got 2. Because before the bowl game, we only had the 1. So the over hits on this one because Ty Robinson had 12.5. John Bullock had 10. Let's see. The over hit. So BJ, Matt, and the fans all took the over.
Nice.
Total yards for Nebraska's.
Good job, guys.
Total yards for Nebraska's offense, 5,000 yards. We had 4,667. So the under hit. Matt and myself took the under. How many college football playoff teams will be from the SEC and Big Ten combined? 6 or less, 7 or 8 or more. It ended up being 7, 4 for the Big Ten, 3 from the SEC. Elijah and myself were the only two that took 7. And Elijah threw in a second pick, or last pick at the end. Does Nebraska have a first-team all-conference player? BJ was the only one dumb enough to say yes, and we did not. So Matt and myself won the season picks with 7 and 4. Elijah went 6 and 5. BJ went 5 and 6. The fans went 4 and 6.
Oof.
As far as the whole season, we had 120 questions on the entire season.
Nice round number.
It is. I didn't do that on purpose, but that's how it went.
Well done. Well done, sir.
BJ, you had 45 correct.
Oh my God.
That's a rough percentage.
That's last.
If you would see my betting average on the season, I'm like 31 games over 500.
I was gonna say
this
it
year.
wasn't 35%.
Yeah, no, it was like it's like 68%.
The fans were also under 50%. They had 56 correct. I was right at 50%. I had 60 correct out of 120. And Matt blew us all out of the water with 72 correct.
Jesus Christ. What is that? That's more than 30 with 35 ahead of me?
That
30
is
ahead of me?
A lot. I don't.
What did I have again?
45.
45 and he
I've
had
had some
72,
Jaeger
so
and
he was
another
20,
shot, so
he's
I don't-
27 ahead of me.
Oops.
Jesus Christ.
See.
Yeah.
Wow. That's like 3 straight weeks. I could have gotten 100% and you could have not picked anything. And I would have, like, Jesus Christ. Holy cow.
I don't know if we wagered anything, but I think you guys owe me some shots.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of, we're going to go do that right after we wrap this up. If you haven't, guys, like, subscribe, share, follow. We should be getting this show out on Thursday, the 16th. We are going to have a quick little, probably 5 to 10 minute national championship preview coming out here sometime here this weekend.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.